Hello, hello. Sorry, is it audible? Showing us live.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, I'm actually switched from my desktop to a laptop, and I believe it is better now. Can you please let me know you can hear me well? Okay, I'll just wait for another couple of seconds for people to join, and then we'll start. Thank you so much for your patience. I believe it is an issue with YouTube Studio. I'm actually doing the live from directly on the YouTube website. I think there is an issue. I'm not able to see your comments, but I can see your comments in a different screen. So I believe we can start from the beginning. So just to introduce, as I said, I'm just introducing again myself. As I said, this live session will be in Malayalam. As I said, I'll do a separate live session in English some point next week. And I'll put the new dates down on the link in the next couple of days. So എൻ്റെ പേര് ഫെബിൻ സിറിയക് എന്നാണ്. ഞാനൊരു നേഴ്സാണ്. 2007 മംഗലാപുരത്ത് ലക്ഷ്മി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ കോളേജിൽ നിന്നാണ് ഞാൻ നഴ്സിംഗ് പഠിച്ചത്. എൻ്റെ വീട് കാസർഗോഡാണ്. ഞാൻ കഴിഞ്ഞ 15 വർഷമായിട്ട് UK-ൽ താമസിക്കുന്നു. നേഴ്സായിട്ടാണ് UK-ൽ വന്നത്. അതിനുശേഷം 2014 എൻവേർട്ടിസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു റിക്രൂട്ട്മെൻറ്റ് സ്ഥാപനം ഇവിടെ തുടങ്ങി. ഇന്ന് UK-ലും ഇന്ത്യയിലും മിഡിൽ ഈസ്റ്റിൽ ദുബായിലും അതേപോലെ സൗത്ത് ആഫ്രിക്കയിലും എൻവേർട്ടിസിൻ്റെ പ്രസൻസുകളുണ്ട്. കഴിഞ്ഞ 4-5 വർഷം കൊണ്ട് UK-യിലേക്ക് ഏകദേശം 12,000-ഓളം നേഴ്സുമാരെ ഞങ്ങൾ വഴി ഇവിടെ വന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതേപോലെ നേഴ്സുമാരല്ലാതെ കെയർ വർക്കേഴ്സ്, അലൈഡ് ഹെൽത്ത് പ്രൊഫഷണൽസ്, ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള എല്ലാവരും റിക്രൂട്ട്മെൻ്റ് ഉണ്ട്. എൻവേർട്ടിസിൻ്റെ റിക്രൂട്ട്മെൻറ്റ് ഏറ്റവും വലിയ പ്രത്യേകത എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് റിക്രൂട്ട്മെൻറ്റുകൾ ഫ്രീ ആണ്. നിങ്ങൾ റിക്രൂട്ട്മെൻറ്റിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ഒരു ചാർജും നിങ്ങൾക്ക് കൊടുക്കേണ്ടി വരുന്നില്ല. കാരണം ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് പേ ചെയ്യുന്നത് എംപ്ലോയേഴ്സാണ് പേ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ എൻവേർട്ടിസ് വഴിയുള്ള എല്ലാ റിക്രൂട്ട്മെൻറ്റുകളും, ഇതുവരെയുള്ള എല്ലാ റിക്രൂട്ട്മെൻറ്റുകളും ഫ്രീ ആയിട്ടുള്ള റിക്രൂട്ട്മെൻ്റ് ആണ്. ഇന്നത്തെ ഈ ഒരു ലൈവ് ഞാൻ ചെയ്യുന്നതിൻ്റെ കാര്യം, ഒത്തിരി ആളുകൾ എനിക്ക് വാട്സപ്പിലും ഫേസ്ബുക്കിലും ഒക്കെ ആയിട്ട് ഒത്തിരി ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ചോദിക്കാനുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ആ ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസിന് മറുപടി എന്ന രീതിയിലാണ് ഞാൻ ഇത് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഈ ഒരു സെഷനിൽ ഞാൻ എക്സ്പ്ലെയിൻ ചെയ്യുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങളെല്ലാം തന്നെ എൻ്റെ അറിവിലും നോളജിലും എക്സ്പീരിയൻസിലുമുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളാണ്. അതല്ലാതെ ഇതൊരു മറ്റൊരു ലീഗൽ എൻറ്റിറ്റി ആയിട്ടോ മറ്റൊരു സ്ഥാപനവുമായിട്ടോ ഇതിന് യാതൊരുവിധ ബന്ധവുമില്ല. അതേപോലെ ഈ ഒരു വീഡിയോയിൽ ഷെയർ ചെയ്യുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ, ഞാനൊരു പ്രസൻറ്റേഷൻ പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. ആ പ്രസൻറ്റേഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഇന്നത്തെ ഡേറ്റിൽ ഏറ്റവും അക്യുറേറ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഇൻഫർമേഷൻ വെച്ചിട്ടാണ് ഞാൻ ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഒത്തിരി ആളുകൾ ചോദിക്കുന്നു വൈ ഐ കാൻ ഡു ഇറ്റ് ഇൻ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ്. അതുകൊണ്ട് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു ഒത്തിരി ആളുകൾ ചോദിക്കുന്നതുകൊണ്ട് ഞാനത് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലേക്ക് മൂവ് ചെയ്യുകയാണ്. I'm sorry, guys. I know there's been a lot of comments coming through asking me whether I could do it in English. So I'm just going to push this back to English. If something is not clear, I'll be happy to come back and explain this. So we're just going to go and begin an info again. First, the question is how you can be a nurse in the UK. As I said earlier, in order to work as a nurse in the UK, the first thing you would need a qualification. You would need a nursing qualification. I often get questions from, especially from candidates from India, if they have done a diploma in nursing or general nursing and midwifery, whether they would be allowed to work in the UK. Yes, people with diploma are eligible to come and work in the UK. Then the second question is, the second criteria is actually experience. That is one of the biggest criteria for someone to work in the UK. But at that point, I just wanted to make it clear there is a two set of guidance available in the UK, or there's a two set of procedures in the UK. The first thing, if you wanted to register as a nurse in the UK, you would need to register with the regulator, which is Nursing and Midwifery Council in the UK. As of 2016, Nursing Midwifery Council has taken down the experience requirement. So therefore, at the moment, if you wanted to register as a nurse in the UK, or if you wanted to work as a nurse in the UK, you do not require an experience. However, the employers have the choice to set their requirements. And what we often see that a lot of employers are now asking at least 12 months experience. But at the same time, we have also recruited lots of newly qualified nurses who qualified in 2020 or 2021 on the recent years. We have recruited a lot of people to UK, and they were newly qualified nurses or someone with 3 to 6 months experience. But with the current situation, I personally don't think that there will be much opportunities for newly qualified nurses to come and work in the UK. And I do have the reason behind it, because looking at the current situation, there are around 5,000 plus nurses waiting for an interview at the moment. And as you can understand, when the vacancies are limited, when the applicants are higher, the employers would always prefer to hire the best eligible candidate. And that perspective, I feel that it might be difficult for a newly qualified nurse to get a job without having a experience. So if you are a newly qualified nurse, if you have done your IELTS or OET, or you have done all your NMC registration paperwork, I would strongly recommend you to gain some experience. So that's the first part. Then coming to the third section, which is about language proficiency. So it is a legal requirement for you to prove your language proficiency to work as a nurse in the UK. So there are three pathways for language proficiency. The first one is IELTS or OET. There are certain scores you will need to achieve in your IELTS exam. So typically, you would need to write academic IELTS with listening, speaking, and reading, 7 band and 6.5 in writing. And the same with occupational English test, which is OET, B grade in listening, speaking, and reading, and C plus in writing, so which is equivalent to 7 band. So that's the primary criteria for international nurse to come and work in the UK. So if you have met these three requirements, then you can start your application with Nursing Midwifery Council, which is an online application. You would fill your basic details and pay the registration fee of £140. Once this has been paid, you would be then taken to the next step, which is the competency exam, where you'll be doing a competency exam, which is computer-based exam. Then there will be a registration verification from your current regulator or from the regulator from your home country. And there will be some other documents related to your qualification and also related to your police clearance checks. So there are certain documents you will need to upload to NMC. Once it's done, you will be able to sit down for your OSCE examination. OSCE is a clinical examination, objective examination, which is a practical examination currently conducted by 5 universities in the UK, and where you will sit for a OSCE examination. So typically, you will go through an OSCE training, then you will sit for your OSCE examination. That's the first pathway for nurses to come and work in the UK. Then there is a second pathway, which is for predominantly for nurses currently working in an English-speaking country. If you are an overseas qualified nurse, or if you are a nurse from an English-speaking country, you can register with an MC without meeting the English language requirement. which means since you are from an English-speaking country, your language requirement will be automatically bypassed, which is also applicable for other nationals who are working in English-speaking country. If I give you an example, if you are an overseas qualified nurse from India, and if you have been working in Malta, which is an English-speaking country, for more than 1 year as a registered nurse, then you could use your employer reference to bypass your English language requirement. But you should be working as a registered nurse in that country for at least 1 year. Then the third criteria, which is a third pathway, which is the most recent pathway, which is called SIF pathway, supporting information from the employers. So, which is introduced for applicants who are already in the UK. If I explain that element, SIF pathway is actually for people who are already in the UK with a relevant qualification from overseas. And if they wanted to work as a nurse, then they can use an employer reference from their current employer. They must be working in the healthcare sector, either as a care worker or senior care worker or any similar roles. And they must have worked for that employer at least 1 year and has to be in a nursing home. So these are the main requirements for someone to come and work in the UK. So these are the basic criteria. So once you met these criteria, then you will start your NMC registration, as I said before. Then you will go through the CBT exam. Then once you pass the CBT exam, then you will do the OSCE exam. Just in terms of CBT exam, CBT is something called a competency-based test or a computer-based exam, which you can do in your home country and which is being operated by a company called Pearson VUE. So which is an online exam lasting around 2.5 hours. So you'll have something around 140 questions, which is part A and part B. And the questions are more of multiple choice questions. So you'll have one question and 3 to 4 answers where you would need to choose the right answer. Once you've done the exam, you will have your results within the next 24 hours, whether you are successful. If it's any reason, if you failed your exam, then you have 2 re-attempts left within that scheme, which you can reappear after 10 working days. Then the OSCE exam is actually currently conducted in the UK by some of the approved NMC approved test centers in the UK. We have 5 test centers. The first one is Oxford Brookes University. They do have 2 test centers. One is in Oxford and the second one is in Swindon. Then the second one is Northampton University. And the third one is Ulster University in Londonderry, which is in Belfast or part of Northern Ireland. Then we have 2 new test centers which are came in last year. Leeds Teaching Hospital and Newcastle Hospital. And the OSCE, there will be a lot of changes on the OSCE at the moment. Every single candidate is going through the new OSCE, which the exam could last around 3 hours. Then, which is a practical examination, you'll be going through 10 different clinical stations. If you are coming to UK as a part of a employment offer, then you'll be given necessary training for your OSCE examination. So once you pass your OSCE, what would technically happen? The Nursing Midwifery Council will verify all your documents. Once the documents are verified, then they will give you registration. So that registration is called NMC PIN number. Then that point, you will be eligible to work as a registered nurse. Until that point, you will be working as a pre-registered nurse. So from that point, you'll go through the supernumerary and again, all other competencies trainings. Once it's completed, you will be able to work as a fully registered nurse. Just covering these points, I just wanted to add 2 points. There's always a question from candidates. People ask me whether when they come to the UK, whether there is any restriction in their OSCE exam. So there's a guidance when you are in the UK, if you are on an employment visa, you should sit for your OSCE within the first 3 months. And also the validity for some of the documents. All your documents are valid for 2 years, which is your IELTS, OET, your CBT, and your OSCE. So these exam results are valid for 2 years. See, for example, if you have passed your OSCE examination and if any of your documents are not valid or if it's expired, then you still have another 2 years time to get those documents sorted, which would allow you to get the NMC registration. So I'm moving to the next topic. I know there are lots of comments coming through. I'm happy to go through these comments at the end. I just wanted to finish my slides, which I prepared. I'm not going to try to share the slide here because I'm worried that whether it would cause further issues in my voice. So moving to the next slide, which is about UK nursing recruitment updates. And I believe most of you wanted to hear what is happening in the UK. So I just wanted to give you a bit of background about UK recruitment. UK wasn't really doing, or the NHS wasn't really doing any recruitment between 2010 to 2015. And in 2016, National Health Service or NHS started recruiting overseas qualified nurses. It was initially started in 2016. Down the road, 2017 and 18, we have seen something around 40 plus hospitals were recruiting from overseas. This is where majority of nurses started to come to the UK. And when they started the recruitment in 2016, there was a massive shortage for nurses, and the vacancies were around 100,000 plus, where employers were offering a relocation package towards your recruitment, which includes cost of your visas, cost of your flight ticket, and also they would provide refunds for your IELTS OET exam and also your CBT exam. And on arrival, you will get a couple of months free accommodation, and on the top, you will be supported through your OSCE examination. So these were the system has been running through since 2016. In 2019, when we had the Conservative government in place, there was a election manifesto of 50,000 new nurses to NHS. And since 2019, majority of these recruitments were happening behind the reason of this election manifesto of 50,000 nurses. And essentially what was happening, the government was giving funding towards NHS hospitals for filling their vacancies. So typically, the government would go out and ask hospitals with their vacancy numbers. Once the hospital has confirmed their current vacancies, then the government would allocate funding towards that recruitment. So that is something has been happening since 2019, and the last funding was in June 2023. As you might be aware that there have been a change in the government, and because of that change, the current funding, the last funding was ended in December 2023. So majority of these recruitments were happening up until January this year. Since then, there is no funding from the government towards the international recruitment, or it is not yet decided. So at the moment, the recruitment is not happening as before. But there are recruitments. So the point I wanted to highlight, there are recruitments happening, there are interviews, but it is not as before. So people often ask me a question whether the recruitment has paused, whether there is a freeze in recruitment. There isn't any freeze in recruitment, but at the moment, in my understanding, majority of hospitals doesn't have much number of vacancies. There are a number of reasons for it, which is again from my opinion. When I looked into the national database, it is showing us there is around 53,000 active vacancies available in the UK for nurses. So these vacancies need to be filled up. And again, there's a lot of people are now moving to retirement, and I believe the vacancy numbers would increase. But speaking to some of the employees, we kind of feel that some of the hospitals where we did a massive recruitment last year, and which has filled a lot number of vacancies. So at the moment, the vacancies are limited compared to previous years. And I believe the situation would change within the next couple of months. But there are a couple of reasons I believe the recruitment might not happen as before. If I give you an example, as a company, we were recruiting an average of 250 nurses every month since 2019. But at the moment, what we bring to the UK is less than 10 or less than 15 candidates a month. So that's a huge difference in bringing candidates, or that's a huge difference in numbers. And the primary reason, when we speak to the hospitals, a lot of hospitals are telling us they don't have enough vacancies. There are also number of other reasons, which is from my own personal research. So when we looked into the market, again, UK's long-term plan, or NHS long-term plan, is to recruit from overseas. And also at the same time, they wanted to see more homegrown nurses in the UK. And if you look at the universities, then the people choosing the nursing, the numbers are dropping compared to previous years. However, the number of international nurse, or number of international students joining to a graduate nursing program has massively increased within the last couple of years. If I give you an example, in 2020 or 21, the number of nursing admissions were available at a university level was something around 20. Now, some of the universities are offering up to 150 student placements for nurses every year. And while we have seen a lot of overseas or international students come into the UK to do a 3-year bachelor's nursing, and which is now producing a significant number of nurses in the country. And within the last 2 months, and I believe there's a large number of nurses passed out or qualified in the UK, and the numbers are coming around 24,000. I don't have the exact numbers, but looking at the admission rates and drop-off rates, and I believe there's around 24,000 over nurses qualified in the UK within the last 2 months. So they will be filling a lot of vacancies currently in the UK. The second point, back in 2022, NMC has introduced a new pathway, which as I mentioned, is a SIFT pathway supporting information from the employers, which is allowing care workers or senior care workers with a nursing qualification would allow them to register as a nurse. So as of now, there's around 12,500 nurses registered through that route, and they are already in the country. So these are, I believe, these are the main reasons for a lot of employers are not relying on international recruitment. So these are the main reasons. Then also at the same time, some of the hospitals kind of believe that it is not affordable for them to recruit from overseas for a number of reasons. One reason why we have seen, this is a feedback what we heard from employers, not just from NHS, which is also from a lot of private nursing homes or private hospitals. They spend a huge amount of money towards your international recruitment, and the cost is something around a minimum of £8,000. So they spend that money, bring you over to the UK. They provide you training, support, everything to work as a registered nurse. And what they often see, people resign, move from that employer to another employer, and which is now putting their vacancy numbers back into zero again. And also, end of the day, it is costing huge amount of time and effort to their process, because it's not something they are employing a registered nurse in the UK. They're actually spending time on recruiting someone from overseas. The second reason why we have seen in the last couple of years, when we had a massive demand for nursing vacancies, often employers were happy to accept nurses without experience, or if their experience is actually in a different department, and if they're willing to work in a separate department on the vacancy department, they were happy to accept it. If I give you an example, if your experience is in the medical surgical ward, but if the hospital or nursing home vacancy is for a medical or a theatre nurse or ICU nurse, what tend to happen, people tend to choose an ICU vacancy because they knew that there is no vacancy for a medical surgical nursing. But down the road, what they have seen, people are moving to a medical surgical department after 6 months or 12 months, which is again putting a burden on the department, because they spend a lot of time and effort to train you up to that particular department, then you are leaving. And also the third reason, which is also one of the key reasons, a lot of people who came to the UK within the last couple of years from overseas are now moving to other countries, which is also causing a bit of inconvenience for some of the employers, because where they see it is not a sustainable long-term solution. So these are some of the reasons or some of the feedbacks we had from employers in terms of the current recruitment. So answer to your question, this is one of the most important questions people often ask: do we have an option for recruitment? Yes, UK will be continuously recruiting, but the vacancy numbers would be limited. It will not be same as before, unless and until the government, if the government announce a new budget plan, things might go back into the previous. I don't have any information. All I'm aware of, the new government is now auditing the NHS on a nationwide, and I believe the audit report would come out at the end of September. And I believe probably the government might make some decision on that probably after time, but anytime they can do it. But we don't have any information now. But if I hear anything down the road, I'm happy to explain that. So I'm also moving to the next part. So the next part, so a lot of candidates are coming to me and asking, well, I've been waiting for a UK recruitment over 6 months. Should I wait for it, or should I look for other countries? I had a look into some of the other countries, and the feedback I had from every country is pretty much same. But I just wanted to go through that. The next option for nurses is Ireland. So Ireland has got vacancies, but the vacancy numbers are very minimal. And again, vacancies are more of a specialist areas. There are vacancies in the health and social care sector. There are also vacancies in the public sector. So if you are eligible, if you have the relevant experience, you could also try Ireland recruitment market or Ireland as an option. The second option is Germany. I believe the last 2 years, German recruitment is booming. A lot of candidates are now preparing for German and moving to Germany. In my understanding from the German authorities, there are 500,000 plus vacancies in German. But what they have seen now, they're looking into very much quality nurses. They're looking for nurses with a strong experience and also a fluency in their local language, which is German. At the moment, the requirement for someone to work as a nurse in German, you would need to have B2 level certificate in German language. But what we often see, this is one of the most important feedback I quite recently had from one of the employer. They had recruited some of the nurses from overseas with a B2 German language certificate, and some of them couldn't even speak a single word in German, or they couldn't understand. Obviously, as you might aware that every single area has got separate dialects or slangs, and where it is difficult for someone to pick up. So some of the nurses, even with a B2 certificate, are struggling to understand the local dialects or local accent, which is remaining as one of the biggest concern. And also at the same time, they have figured out a lot of candidates are now coming with forged German certificate. So they paid money to someone to get a German certificate, but essentially they don't speak. Then they ended up terminating those contracts. But Germany is a country. There are thousands of vacancies at the moment, which is an option for you. Then the third country, Australia. Australia had massive number of vacancies in the last couple of years. But looking at the current situation, there's no many vacancies in cities. There are vacancies in remote areas, but where they are seeing a huge number of applicants are coming from New Zealand or Singapore or Malaysia. But at the moment, there isn't any direct pathway for overseas qualified nurses. There are few countries which is accepted by the APRA or the Australian Nursing Council, where you would be able to get a registration directly. But countries like India or some other countries where you do not have a direct pathway to become a registered nurse in Australia. The process, you have to do the registration, then you have to do the English exam, and which is again a practical examination, which you have to do it in Australia, where you have to apply for a visit visa. But with the current situation, if you are thinking of working in the Australia, I would say you can try for it if you have a very strong experience, especially in an acute department. Then the next option is New Zealand. In my understanding, there isn't any vacancy for nurses at the moment in New Zealand. And I've been told there are around 5,000 plus overseas qualified nurses with a valid registration in New Zealand is looking for an employment. They have done all their paperwork. They have done the CAP program and they have their registration, but they are struggling to find a job in in New Zealand. So these are the current situation. And again, what we have seen in the last 2 years, a lot of UK and Ireland based nurses were moving to Australia through the New Zealand route, which means nurses working in the UK, if they have sufficient experience in the UK, they would be able to register with the New Zealand Council, without meeting any language requirement or without meeting any competency requirement. But as of 1st of July 2024, the New Zealand Nursing Council has introduced nurses who have an experience in the UK. They would need to pass a competency exam before they can get the registration, which is not applicable for UK qualified nurses, which is only applicable for nurses trained in outside of UK, nurses trained in overseas. So at the moment, on a nationwide, I would say, or worldwide, I would say vacancies are limited, but I'm hoping that things would change. You would need to understand one of the key points from the World Health Organization. World Health Organization is expecting around 25 million nursing vacancies by 2030. So there will be vacancies, but I think it's more of a time. Things might change down the road within the next couple of months. I'm moving to the next section. Which is about experience. What I would do once I done the discussion, I might be able to share the PPT, or I might be able to share the transcript of this session on a post, so you will have more information in case if you can't pick at something. So experience is one of the biggest questions I was getting, especially my team was getting for the last couple of months, because while we have seen a lot of people are being newly qualified in 2021 or 2022, are now looking to come and work in the UK. As I said, experience is not a requirement to work in the UK. When I say that, a lot of candidates were coming back and saying, yes, we've been working in a local hospital where we do not get an experience certificate. You do not require to provide an experience certificate for a UK job. But although your employers will be asking you to provide an employment reference, which is a legal requirement, which means the employer would send a document to your current employer or previous employer, who would need to sign and return that form to the employer, which is a verification of your employment, which is called reference check. Which is a requirement, but we don't need an experience certificate. None of the hospitals in the UK will ask you for a experience certificate. But as I said, experience is not relevant. But however, with the current situation and number of applicants waiting, I would strongly recommend you to gain some experience. And one of the most significant changes what we have seen since 2023, when we get a requirement from a hospital, for example, if it's a theatre requirement, there will be a certain guidance within that requirement. They would say we would need nurses with a theatre experience for at least 1 or 2 years. So most of these vacancies are now experience oriented. That is one of the biggest changes happen in the UK in terms of experience. So you would need to, if you don't have any experience, or if you're trying to gain some experience, it is always better to do that research and find a department where you believe you can easily find a job. I'll give you some of the departments which I feel or which I believe it's going to be a huge demand. So that's something I'll give you in a minute. But before, as I said, experience, I'm not saying that even if you are a newly qualified nurse, you wouldn't get a job. You can always try for it, but it is very unlikely to get a job, especially if they have 5 vacancies and they've been seeing 50 applicants with experience. Then probably the employer might tend to prefer someone with experience. Then the vacancies are, as I said, the vacancies are now more of experience oriented. And when it comes to vacancies, a lot of hospitals are now asking, or a lot of employees are asking, whether applicants with acute experience. When I say acute experience, experience in some of the acute departments, and also experience in the hospitals with a bed capacity of minimum 150. Because we have seen candidates coming through with a small experience, where they have worked in a very small hospital or maybe worked as a school nurse, then it might be difficult for them to get a job in NHS with the current situation. Then when it comes to experience part, I wanted to highlight 2 more important points. One is about forged experience certificates. We often see, I would say 1 out of 10 is coming with a forged experience certificate. I would strongly recommend, please do not choose that route, because that might put your life into a trouble. So please do not try to get a fake experience certificate from an employer. there are systems in place, and the employees are aware, we are aware, where you can get a fake certificate. And when we see these experience certificates, it is very easy for us to understand whether it's a genuine experience or whether it's something you've been forged. But if that happens at any point of your profession, at any point in the UK, then there will be a consequence on that. And also at the same time, there's a lot of people are now coming with fake IELTS or OET scorecards. We have seen quite a few cases quite recently. NMC has involved. There have been escalations from OET about some of the candidates came with a forged OET scorecards. So I would strongly recommend you to do the preparation, sit your exam, and get the proper results rather than spending money on someone and gaining a forged document. So moving to next section is about the vacancies. These are I'm not saying the vacancy numbers which I'm going to the vacancy departments which I will be saying would be 100% right, but this is more of my own experience, and I do have reasons. So with the current situation, I believe there will be a lot of vacancies for theatre nurses, especially within the theatre, scrub, anesthesia, and recovery. There will be a huge demand for these nurses, and I particularly see that there's a massive shortage for recovery nurses. So if you have experience in theatres, there will be a lot of vacancies. We have been speaking to quite a few employees quite recently. They did mention to us that they have some theatre vacancies and they might be looking to recruit these candidates within the next couple of months. I don't know when it's going to start. I'm still waiting to hear that from the employees, but they have vacancies. And there will be another reason for this. You might be aware that we all been through the pandemic, and where the surgeries were delayed. We currently have a large list of number of people waiting for a surgery or surgical procedure. So where we need more people, more staff in every theatre. So, and I believe there will be a lot of vacancies. And again, if you look at the current government's election manifesto, and the current surgical waiting time is one of their key priority. They wanted to reduce the waiting time. They want people to get the surgeries as soon as possible. And you must have seen that some of the hospitals started doing the surgeries even in the weekends. And some of the hospitals even started outsourcing their surgeries to third-party companies who will come and do the surgical procedures even in the weekends. So there will be a huge demand for theatre nurses. The second department, which I believe is going to be ITU nurses. Again, obviously, when you go through a surgery, you definitely need to go through intensive care unit. So there'll be intensive thoracic unit vacancies, and also there'll be some intensive care unit vacancies. So IT vacancies is the second one. The third one is emergency room vacancies or emergency assessment unit vacancies. So this is one of the critical areas. There's a massive shortage. And the fourth one, I'm sorry. The fourth one would be medical surgical experience. So if you can an experience in medical surgical department, then it is always easy for you to be in any medical surgical department, not necessarily in one particular department. You are more flexible. You'll be eligible to be in any ward areas. So that is also one of the key areas you need to consider. Then the last one is actually mental health nurse vacancies. You must have seen on the last government announcement, they have priorities in filling the mental health nurse vacancies. So if you are trying to come as a mental health nurse, with the new guidance from NMC, you do not require a specific qualification to register as a mental health, but your experience is more important. So if you have completed bachelor's nursing from overseas, and if it's not a psychiatric nursing, you can still register as a mental health nurse, but you will require to pass the mental health CBT and mental health OSCE exam. In my perspective or in my personal advice, I would recommend you to do RMN registration. If you have relevant experience in mental health nursing, then I would say it is one of the best options where you would have a lot of career development options. So that's all about nursing vacancies. Then I'm just moving into other departments. So the next topic is all about relocation package and free recruitment. There's been always a question from a lot of people We are aware that there's no many recruitments happening in the UK at the moment. Does that mean can I come to UK by paying some money, or if the recruitment restarts, would that be a paid recruitment or would that be a free recruitment? So at the moment, as of my understanding, the UK recruitment will be a free recruitment because it is a legal policy that applicants should not be charged towards the recruitment and the cost should have to be from the employer. So it will be always a free recruitment. Then the next question is about the relocation package. As I said earlier, uh, most of the employers were offering a relocation package, and in a way, employers were competing each other to get the best talented candidates to their role. So they were offering a relocation package. The package was including your visa fees and also your flight, travel, and also your accommodation, your training. So everything was free of cost. So these relocation packages are different to each employer. And I believe with the current situation, with the current demand, some of these relocation packages might change. Some employers might offer the same package, but some employers, if they have any financial difficulty, then some employers might cut down the relocation package. But you do not have to pay anything towards your recruitment. Even if the relocation packages were not there, you probably would be spending a very little amount for your recruitment, which would be the cost of your NMC registration, cost of your CBT exam, cost of your OSCE examination. Then you might be paying for your visa fees and flight ticket. So and again, even if you pay that, the amount will be still less than £1,000. So that's about free recruitment. And also, I get questions, especially the last couple of days. I had a lot of people message me saying that they have offers from some of the Middle East companies who are offering them a job in a care home, but they would need to pay between 15,000 to £20,000. I wouldn't recommend you to pay anyone for getting a job in the UK, and I don't believe you would be ended up in a correct place, because what we often see, since as I said, we have seen large number of nurses registered through the SIF pathway and are looking for an employer. Especially, this is one of the biggest changes in the social care sector or the nursing home sector, where there's a large number of care workers or senior care workers are now progressed to a nursing role where they have filled most of the vacancies. We've been recruiting nurses to a lot of care homes in the last couple of years, but most of our employers are now either prefer nurses with NMC registration, or they have enough applicants within their home itself. So I don't recommend it. It is going to be the best option to pay someone to get a job in the UK, and I believe it could be potentially you would fall into a scam. So that is with current situation. Then there are nurses who already have an employment offer from the UK, and they don't know what is going to happen with their recruitment. And I believe there have been a lot of recruitments, there have been some recruitment happening in the last couple of months. Some of the nurses all already received an offer letter. So if you already have an offer letter, I would strongly recommend you to proceed with that offer letter. Things might be a bit slow, but you would definitely get to the UK if the offer letter is genuine. So it is important for you to make sure these offer letters are genuine. The reason why I have seen, as I said, there are when the demand is high, when the demand is high, there's always a chance people will abuse it. We have often seen some of the nurses are paying huge amount of money towards getting a job in the UK. So just in a point, um, if you already have an offer, first thing you would need to double check your offer letter is genuine. If it's issued by an employer, it would be a standard offer letter. It will be in a letterhead. You would have your name must be in the offer letter. Your weekly hours should be in the offer letter. Your salary will be in the offer letter. And if they're offering any relocation package, it should be detailed in the offer letter. If you get any emails, we often see that people are sending spam emails to nurses with a very attractive salary. The typical average nurse salary in the UK is around, if it's a private sector, it is around £20. Where in the NHS, it is a band 5 salary, which is around 28,000 to 29,000 pounds with the new change. But if you're getting £55,000 salary without going through an interview, then you can definitely assume that if it's coming to your inbox directly without going through any interview, then you can definitely see it as a fake offer letter. I'm also aware that some of the nursing agencies or some of the recruitment agencies are issuing offer letters within their letterhead uh, on a promise that they would give you a job, which is not a genuine offer letter. Employment agencies are not allowed to issue an offer letter to a candidate for their clients. Employment agencies can issue offer letters to candidates if they have a direct vacancy within their office. No, they are not allowed to issue an offer letter on behalf of an employer. So if you have such offer letters, you probably need to cross check that with your recruitment company. Then you need to make a decision on that part. Then if there's any reason if your offer is withdrawn, we are also aware that I have seen quite a few hospitals withdrawn some of the nurses offer letters quite recently in terms of funding elements. If your offer letter is withdrawn, then I would strongly recommend you to try for alternative options or alternative vacancies. um, you need to have patience. There is nothing I believe is going to happen overnight, so you probably need to wait for a couple of months, but I'm positive that you will still get vacancies. And I'm also giving you some of the options. I know there's a large number of people wanted to see what are the options we have. So what I would advise, if you go into NHS employers ethical recruiters list, you will see a list of employers so you will see a list of recruitment agencies approved by the NHS employers. So these agencies are called ethical recruiters. So you can contact these agencies directly. And some of these agencies are predominantly working in rush recruitment. And if you contact them, they will give you a vacancy notification. And if they have any vacancies, they will select you. The second option, you can always apply directly to an employer. So if you wanted to work in England, you can always go into NHS jobs website or track jobs, where you can submit an application for a full-time vacancy. So when you check a vacancy, you would need to make sure the vacancy you're applying will be a permanent job, and also it's a full-time job which you can apply. Then the second option, if you wanted to work in Scotland, then there is a separate website, which is an NHS Scotland website, where you can apply for live vacancies. Then the third option, there are lots of private hospitals in the UK. When I say lots, means less than 10, where you can directly apply to these hospitals. If they have a vacancy, they would consider you. And also at the same time, you can also apply on the private care homes. If you refer a website called carehomes.co.uk, which is a website predominantly posting or have a database of majority of the nursing homes in the country, where you will be able to apply some of the registered nurse vacancies. Some employers might give you OSCE training and other relevant support. Then that is an option for you. So these are the main options. Then people often ask me, I know we are aware that the recruitment is not happening. How about if I come on a visit visa to the UK, and can I search for a job while I'm on a visit visa? Unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to work while you are on a visit visa, or you wouldn't be able to apply for a job while you are on a visit, because visit visa is for the purpose of visiting the United Kingdom, not for employment, and you wouldn't be allowed to work while you are on a visit visa. The second option people often get asked me is, if I come as a care worker, would I be able to work as a nurse down the road? Would I be able to get a job? Which is an option, but in my point, I wouldn't really recommend that at the moment, because the first scenario, there isn't much vacancies for care workers at the moment. As you might be aware that the last 2 years we had close to 200,000 people came from overseas on a care visa, and at the moment the vacancies are much limited. And so that reason, if you come as a care worker in the UK, yes, you can progress as a registered nurse through the SIFT route after 1 year. But when you work as a care worker, you're actually losing your nursing experience. Then that would be more of considered as an employment gap within the NHS. But some employers would say you do not have a recent acute experience, so they might not consider your application. So I wouldn't recommend with the current situation as a best option, because it is always better to come as a registered nurse rather than coming as a care worker. And also, I do get a question, how about if someone coming on a student visa? With the current situation within the market, I wouldn't recommend spending you a huge amount of money on a student visa. And again, because that wouldn't really guarantee that you will get a job, because there's no direct pathway at the moment. So my personal advice would be wait for a couple of months, gain your experience, then you can always come and register as a nurse. Now, moving to the next section, as I said, if you are thinking of, if you haven't done your IELTS or OET, and if you wanted to come and work in the UK, then the question, should I just go and prepare for my IELTS and OET? I would strongly recommend you to continue your learning, because language exams remain as one of the biggest barrier for nurses to come and work in the UK. So, which is the biggest stumbling block. So I would say focus on your IELTS or OET exam, pass your IELTS or OET exam, then do your NMC registration, pass your CBT exam, then try to get back to an employment. Simultaneously apply for vacancies, which would allow you to come and work in the UK down the road, because you would have 2 years time frame. If there's any reason your IELTS or OET is expiring, you probably need to rewrite it, but again, it is one of the best viable option for you to come and work in the UK. And you need to understand, one of the biggest change from the last couple of years is actually the experience. So focus on your experience. If you have done your CBT exam, if you've been waiting for months for an NHS interview or a UK interview, I would recommend you to wait for an interview without gaining experience, because even when you get a vacancy, as I said, employers would always prefer someone with a strong experience. And so that element, it is always good to get back to some employment, gain some experience. So that's all the majority of the sections. I'm just moving into an OSCE program. So quite recently, there have been a lot of news. There's a lot of videos about self-sponsored OSCE pathway. There have been a lot of rumors that there's a separate visa category for nurses to come and work in the UK, come and do the OSCE exam in the UK, something called self-sponsored program, self-visa program, or direct OSCE program, direct NMC. There have been different names. And I don't really understand why we have these names, but in my understanding, there's one option you have. You can come to the UK on a visit visa, and you can sit for your OSCE examination. Once you've done your OSCE examination, within 4 weeks, you will have your NMC registration. If all your documents are good, you will have your NMC registration. Then the NMC registration, your OSCE PIN number, your NMC PIN number will be valid for next 3 years, which means at any point within that 3 years, you can always come to the UK as a registered nurse. And also, when you are a registered nurse, your chances of getting a job is much higher, because you can pretty much start your employment directly rather than going through the OSCE training and everything. And people often ask me a question: my IELTS is expiring within the next 3 or 4 months. Can I come to the UK and do your OSCE examination? I wouldn't recommend you to come to the UK just for the reason that your IELTS or OET score is expiring and you wanted to come and do the OSCE examination. It's purely the reason IELTS is costing around £200, and OET is costing around £350 or £400. And coming to the UK on a direct sponsorship, it would cost you around at least £4,500 coming to the UK and staying in the UK for 2 weeks and doing the exam. So you would need to decide yourself, would that worth spending £4,500, or would it be worth redoing the OSCE, OET or IELTS? But I'll just go through the process. We also provide OSCE training. We do have an OSCE training center in Oxford, and we do provide OSCE training to some other recruiter candidates. We've been training nurses to our NHS employers, and at the moment we do training candidates who's been progressing their application through the SIF pathway. So the programs what we offer at the moment, we offer 2 set of programs. One OSCE training program is actually based in our Cochin office, where you will have a 14 days residential training. So we'll provide accommodation. You will have a 14 days residential training in our Cochin office, where you'll be trained for OSCE. Then after that training, you'll be supported through a visit visa application to the UK. Then when you come to the UK, you'll be given a 2 days refresh training. Then we will take you to the test center where you'll be appearing for your OSCE examination. But I just wanted to put a bit more details into it. So that is one of the options we do at the moment. The second option, you can come to the UK on a visit visa. You would need to spend at least 14 days in the UK. You take a 1 week training in our training center in Oxford. Then once the training is done, then we would support you on OSCE examination. Once you've done the examination, you would obviously get your PIN number within the next 4 weeks. That PIN number is valid for 3 years. If there's any reason, if you haven't passed your OSCE examination on the first attempt, you'll be able to resit for your exam after 10 days if you have partially failed on that. One of the biggest issues what we have been seeing with OSCE examination, people often come with without having enough documents, because you are normally going through an ID verification check just after your OSCE examination. So if you are coming to the UK just to do the OSCE examination, please ensure you have all your valid documents. If you don't have any valid documents, you probably would need to come back again to do that ID verification. That is one of the most important point. Whenever you do the examination, you should carry all your evidence document, all the documents you used for your NMC application. The second point, as you might be aware that at the moment, once you've done the examination, NMC can take up to 5 working days to release your results, which means you probably would need to wait another 5 days to get your results. Then if you are successful in your OSCE examination, then you can obviously go back. If there's any reason, if you're not successful with your first attempt, then you would need to wait another 10 to 15 working days to reappear for your OSCE examination. So that's our OSCE program. But again, when it comes to OSCE program, as I said, there's a number of costs you would need to consider. One is actually the OSCE exam fees, which is around £800. Then your flight tickets cost, your visa cost, your accommodation, food, training cost. So these are the costs you would need to consider. And I would probably recommend these options for nurses working in Middle East or some other countries where you would have an option to come and do your exam. Probably it might be easier for you to afford these costs. But the most important point, you are applying for a visit visa to come and do your OSCE examination. If you are not in employment, if you don't have enough financial status, it is very unlikely to get your visit visa approved. When you apply for your visit visa, you would need to meet certain requirements, which is a part of visit visa guidance. So the first thing, you would need to just satisfy an immigration officer why you're coming to the UK. That's the first thing. Then you need to satisfy them, your accommodation and financial circumstances. Then also you have to detail your other family situations and personal relationship. And the fourth most important point, you need to have a confirmation that you will return to your home country after your visit period. So you would need an OSCE booking. You need an accommodation booking in advance. You also need a booking for your OSCE training. Then you need to have enough money to support yourself during your time in the UK. So if you don't have an employment, if you don't have enough money to support yourself, I wouldn't recommend you to go for an OSCE training, which is not worth, because you wouldn't get your visa approved. If that happens, some scenarios, you probably will not get some of the monies you pay towards your training or other cost. So these are the points you would need to consider. So that's all the most points I wanted to go through. I'm just going to go back and see the questions. Then I would answer the questions just now. So give me 2 minutes time, because I don't have an option to see the comments in my chat because it's showing us something went wrong. But let me see if I can see it on a different screen. Thank you so much. So I'm just trying to open some other screen so I can just read some of the comments. So there's been a question about speaking in English. I believe I managed to change that. So there's some questions. So someone is saying my OET will expire soon. What shall I do? I have 1.7 years of experience. With the current situation, I would strongly recommend you to wait for another month, probably until September. Then we will see what's happening with the current situation. Then you can take a decision there. Then there's a question from Grace Emma asking whether there's an age bar. At the moment, there isn't any age bar for UK job. You can come to UK at any stage. Aditya is asking a question, what about OSCE pass candidates awaiting PIN number? Do you have any interview for them? So if you are already in the UK, if you have done your OSCE examination, if you have secured your PIN number, we do have some vacancies, but majority of our vacancies are in the private sector. The vacancies are limited, as I said, at the moment. We have a large number of NMC registered nurses waiting for a job, but we do have interviews, so we can consider you for a job. So the next question, I would say just contact the office. They will guide you through them. So there's been a question about please explain the current recruitment status, which I believe I already explained. Then the question is about interviews. As I said, there are interviews happening at the moment, but which is very, very small numbers. Then do we have a priority in interviews if we complete NMC second stage? There isn't any priority based on if you have completed NMC second stage. And again, when it comes to NMC part second stage, the documents you are uploading on the part 2 is only valid for certain period. And some of the documents are only valid for 3 months, or some of them go up to 6 months. So what you need to make sure, I would strongly recommend you to do your part 2 before coming to the UK, just before coming to the UK, to ensure your documents are valid. Because you normally, once you sat for your OSCE examination, the caseworker would assess your documents probably 20 days after your OSCE examination results, once you passed your OSCE. And that point, if your documents are not valid, then the caseworker might ask you to resubmit these documents. So I wouldn't recommend you to complete your part 2 of your NMC registration at the moment, unless and until you get a guaranteed confirmation that that you're coming to the UK. So I would strongly recommend you to do probably 15 days prior to your travel. So there've been a lot of candidates at the moment. I'm aware that they have an interview. They've been waiting for COS. There are some delays within in getting COS, but I believe it's not something primarily with COS issues. It's some of the cases are depending on, as I said, there's a funding issues in some other hospitals. Some other hospitals doesn't have a or international recruitment team to support you when you come to the UK. So there are a number of reasons behind it, but I would say please wait for it. You would definitely, if you already have an offer, you will definitely make your way to the UK. So please wait. We can't really say why the COS is getting delayed or when the COS will come. It is the best thing to go back and ask your employer or the recruitment agency. They might be able to give you a bit more advice on that part. So there's always there's a couple of questions from candidates. When the usual NHS recruitment happen? This is a very tricky question. So as I said, we have been recruiting an average of 200 nurses to UK since 2019. And now the numbers are now less than 20. So there's a huge difference in numbers, and there's a huge difference in vacancies. So I don't know, or personally, I don't think UK would ever go back to the previous method of having a large number of vacancies. Looking at the current situations, homegrown students and also students coming, so the nurses coming through the SIF route, and also international students coming to do the nursing. And I believe there will be vacancies, but it will be a smaller numbers, probably 100 vacancies in a hospital or max of 150 vacancies in a hospital. But I wouldn't think that there will be a large number of vacancies in one particular hospital, because with the current situation, there are lots of nurses available within the country. I don't know, some of them might have seen an article published quite recently. Some of the newly qualified nurses are struggling to find a job within their local area. So things are massively changed from last year. So it would go back to normal, but the vacancy numbers will be limited, or it will be more of experience or specialty based vacancies. So is there any validity for NMC registration? So as I said, NMC registration is valid um, for 2 years. So people are asking about the current recruitment status. As I said, I explained that point. Just gonna go back and see. Someone is asking me where I am from. Kasaragod. I'm from a place called Kanjangad. I don't know which age. So there have been some questions about which agency is continuing interviews. I don't have a particular name. We do have some interviews, but it's very, very minimal numbers. We don't advertise these vacancies because we have a large number of applicants. So if you haven't applied to us, you can always send your documents to us and register with us. What we would do when we see a vacancy against your experience, we will automatically contact you. So we have a database of close to 5,000 nurses at the moment. So we can always contact you when there is a vacancy. So it is, if you haven't registered your documents, if you passed your IELTS or OET, then I would strongly recommend to contact our office or email your CV and updated CV and passport copy to our office, and someone will contact you from office. So there's a comment from Eldo. So Eldo is saying SIF pathway nurses are struggling to find a job. Yes, I'm aware that. As I said, there have been as of in my understanding, there's around 12,500 nurses secured their NMC registration through the SIF pathway as of last week. And I believe with the next couple of months, that number would go up to 20 to 30,000, because I'm looking at my research. I'm hoping that by the end of next year, at least 100,000 nurses, 100,000 care workers would get an MC registration through the SIF pathway. A lot of people wanted to come and work in the NHS, but some of the NHS are not actively recruiting at the moment. So I would recommend you to try in nursing homes. There are vacancies, but as I said, the vacancies is limited as before. So keep applying for it. That's the best option. So there have been questions about pediatric vacancies. We don't see much of pediatric vacancies at the moment, but there will be vacancies. There are some pediatric hospitals in the country. We used to work with one of the pediatric hospital, Alderhay NHS Trust, based in Liverpool. We have recruited a large number of nurses to Alderhay last 2 years back. So that is one of the pediatric hospital. Then we have another hospital in London. So if you are a pediatric nurse, I would strongly recommend you to apply to these hospitals. Great Ormond Street, I believe, if I remember, its second one is a Great Ormond Street. So I would recommend you to apply to these hospitals directly. So someone is saying they have completed, Sangeeta's completed NHS interview and waiting for COS for 7 months. Sangeeta, probably the best thing, if you can go back to your recruitment company or you can speak to your employer, they might be able to give you a better situation. There's been one question. If I'm coming to work as a nurse, would I be able to bring my dependents to the UK? Yes. At the moment, if you are coming as a care worker or senior care worker, you wouldn't be allowed to bring your dependents with you. But if you're coming to the UK as a registered nurse, you should be able to bring your dependents. There is no changes to that guidance, which means you are allowed to bring your dependents. So Rajamol is asking a question that Rajamol has completed OET and CBT. And if I will take OSCE on a visit visa, any chance to get a permanent placement in the UK, placement in the UK. So Raji, you wouldn't be able to get a job while you are on a visit visa. But if you are doing OSCE examination on a visit visa, and if you secure a PIN number, we have a separate team who are supporting the applicants on placements. So we could actually support you in getting a placement. I'm not guaranteeing anything at the moment because I don't want to give a false promise, but we could always, as I said, we have vacancies for registered nurses. We can always try to get you as a priority. So that is one of the key element we offer with our OSCE training. So if you choose an OSCE training through us, and if you secure your NMC registration, whenever we get a vacancy, we will always prioritize you for that. So which you can do it. I know there's lots of questions now. I'm just going down to the last question. So question from Peva. I got into the June 2023 and I started working in July 23, but I collected my license in December. Does that mean my experience is 1 year now? So technically, your experience is from June 2023. Your nursing registration wouldn't be much of relevant. And again, it is up to some employers. Some hospitals, what they do, when they give the experience certificate, they will give you a training nurse experience certificate until you get the registration. From the moment you have your license, they will give you a registered nurse experience. But both of these experience will be considered when you're applying for a UK job. So, which Mary asked a question about community health nurse vacancies in the UK. So this is something I'm hoping there'll be a huge demand for community health nurses in the UK for the next couple of years. With the current government plan and some of the discussions we had the last couple of months, I'm hoping there will be a large number of vacancies for community health nurses. But again, their route is different. The qualification and experience criteria is far different from some of the overseas countries. So you need to be very much aware of what you're going to do and how the job is going to be. So there's a question from Alex. I have experience in pediatrics, but I have done CBT and NMC process in adult field. Will that be a problem? So Alex, at the moment, so pediatric vacancies, there are two set of vacancies for pediatric experienced nurses. So some departments where you will work as a adult nurse in a pediatric department, but at the same time there are some other departments where you will be you are required to register with as a child nurse. So if you have a pediatric experience and if you have adult experience, I would strongly recommend you to try for a pediatric vacancy. You might be able to get through that because we have recruited a large number of pediatric nurses in the last couple of years, and majority of them were on the adult register. But we have seen quite recently some of the employers asked us, particularly they were looking for pediatric experienced nurses who are on the children register. But if you haven't done that, then I would recommend you to be on the adult register. So I believe there's a lot of questions coming through. It might be difficult for me to go through everything, but let me just see if I can give you answers. So there's a question about healthcare assistant vacancies. So in summary, there are vacancies for healthcare workers, but we do have vacancies. We do interview candidates, but we do not take candidates from overseas at the moment because there are a large number of applicants already in the UK who are on either on a student visa or on a graduate visa, or they came from overseas to work as a care worker or senior care worker, then they lost their job. So we are currently considering applicants who are already in the country. So that is our preference. But within the current situation, I don't think that any of my employers would prefer to recruit from overseas for care workers. But again, when it comes to care workers, there have been law issues with the care worker recruitment in the last 2 years. In a way, the system has been massively abused. So the government has made a significant changes into the system, which means you cannot bring your dependents on a care visa. And also, the government is restricting in the way of employers bringing people from overseas. So it might be difficult for employers to bring someone from overseas with the current situation, especially on the immigration side. But there are large number of applicants already in the country. But I would say it's still worth to apply directly. Keep trying, you might get there. Just go through question. So Tessie was saying Tessie has trained OSCE in our academy and asking whether there's no vacancy. So Tessie, just to reiterate, we have vacancies for registered nurses. We don't have vacancies for registered nurses in NHS. We do place nurses in the social care sector, nursing homes or care homes or private hospitals. These, we have a large number of applicants at the moment. The vacancies would change every week, because at the moment, if we get 5 vacancies today, end of the day the team would fill those vacancies and we'll submit these files. So probably the best thing I would recommend you to do is send your documents to us, ask them to register in their file, then they will contact you when they find a suitable vacancy for you. There's a question from Mikey: how much gap is acceptable? So this is one of the important questions. Thanks, Mikey. I haven't really mentioned anything about experience and employment gap. So currently, so in up and if I just go back to 2019 or 2020, some of the hospitals are happy to accept up to 4 years of employment gap. Then we have seen some employers that accepted candidates with a 7 years of employment gap. But the last 2 years, this is all changed. The last 2 years, employers were asking no more than 12 months employment gap. But with the current situation, I believe it would be, the employers might be saying we would require applicants with currently working experience. But up to 12 months gap is acceptable as of now, as of our current requirements. But it is all about the way you need to see this. When there is a large number of candidates for each vacancy, the employees would always prefer to choose the right candidate. Then they might change the requirements. At the moment, 12 months is acceptable. So I have a message from Anita. Anita saying Anita is from Nepal. She passed her NMC registration and passed a CBT and OSCE. And unfortunately, Nepal is actually on the amber list, which means recruitment from Nepal can only be taken through government authorities, between the government. So recruitment agencies are not allowed to accept any applications directly. But I would strongly recommend and that to apply directly to an employer who are happy to accept your application. When it's in the amber list, the guidance says the recruitment has to be between the two recruitment. It cannot be directly through an agency, but you can still apply to an employer, and it is employer's discretion whether they wanted to accept you. So I would recommend you to keep applying both private and NHS vacancies. There's a question from Amala. So Amala is asking, Amala has got 10 months experience in ICU and she's still working. She's asking whether she would start the NMC registration now, or should I wait for until the recruitment starts? So Amala, if you have passed your IELTS or OET, I would strongly recommend you to do your NMC registration at the moment. As I said, your documents are valid for 2 years, and then you can do the CBT exam. So that's the pre stages for interview. Because what we have seen recently, when we get these small number of vacancies, most of the employers are asking for CBT pass nurses. So some scenarios you probably need to travel within 2 months of your interview date, where you might struggle to get a date for your NMC CBT exam. So I would recommend you to start your NMC application, get your documents are all sorted, then prepare for interview. But I would say please keep continuing working. There's a question from Sandesh Pandit. I believe Sandesh is working in Malta to the UK. So he's asking, if I want to migrate from Malta to the UK, is it necessary to attend OSCE? Yes, Sandesh. So if you have worked as a registered nurse in an English-speaking country for more than 1 year, you can start your NMC registration using the pathway of applicants from English-speaking countries, where you would need to do a CBT examination from Malta. I believe the nearest examination center is in Italy. I don't think there's a test center in Malta, so you have to sit for an exam in Italy. Then you can come to the UK and do your OSCE examination. You will require to pass your competency exam too. That's the only way you can get your NMC registration. There's a question: working currently as a healthcare assistant in the UK, need to pass CBT and OSCE privately for overseas nurse. Working as a HCA to get registration in NMC. I'm sorry. So if you are working as a healthcare assistant in the UK, and if you are a qualified nurse from overseas, you can get your registration either doing your IELTS or OET, or you can use the SIF pathway, but you have to complete your CBT and OSCE examination. So someone is asking me, I have passed my IELTS and CBT. How can I apply it to your agency? What I will do, I will comment our office email address, recruitment email address, which is recruitment@envertiz.com. I'll put that in the comment, or someone from my team will put that in the comment. So you can email your documents to the team, and they will contact you when they get their documents. Is there any vacancy for medical surgical? As I said, there will be vacancies for medical surgical, but at the moment, the vacancies are limited. The majority of vacancies what we see at the moment is for theaters, ER, emergency, oncology. There will be vacancies for oncology as well. Sorry. So people were asking, does IELTS required to join the NHS after getting the NMC PIN number? So your IELTS scorecard is to prove your language proficiency to the regulator, which is Nursing Midwifery Council. You do not require to prove your language to the NHS or your employer. Your PIN number, once you passed your examination, once your assessment is done, you will have your NMC registration, which is valid for 3 years. And every 3 years, you have to renew your NMC registration. And also, you have to do the revalidation. You do not require to do an English language test once you gain the registration. All you have to do is you just need to renew your registration every 3 years, which is a declaration to the NMC and a revalidation process. So there's been a question now. Someone is asking what opportunity available for surgical ODP will they consider as a theatre nurse? So if you are a operation department practitioner, and if you have relevant qualification, you can work as an operation department practitioner in theatres, but you would need to register with HCPC Council, which is a separate council for operation department practitioners. One of the key changes into that, now you would need to pass your English language test to get your registration with HCPC register. But once you're registered as a operation department practitioner, you can easily find a job. There are demands, there are requirements for operation department practitioners in the UK. So there was a question: does IELTS required to get a job in the NHS? I said no. If you have a PIN number, you don't need to prove your language. So there's a question: can I attend interviews while on visiting visa if you passed OSCE? Yes, you can attend interviews while you are on a visit visa. It wouldn't be a problem, but you wouldn't be able to work. You and you need to go back to your home country and submit a new application where you can come on a work visa to work as a nurse if you have been successful from the interview. But of course, you can attend the interview while you're on a visit visa. So there's a question from August. Sir, I have a Kerala registration and working at Bangalore for the last 1 year. With this Kerala registration, is there any problem to the UK process and find a job? Please reply. So August, this is a bit of a difficult situation. I'll just explain the background. In the UK, if you are a registered nurse and if you don't have a valid registration and if you practiced in a place without a valid register, without having a NMC registration, it is considered as a criminal offense. And the Indian Nursing Council's guidance says if you wanted to work in a particular state, you should have the state registration. It is not enforced as of yet. I know there have been some changes in the last couple of years, but it is not enforced. I would strongly recommend you to gain your Karnataka Nursing Council registration while you're working in Bangalore. You wouldn't be legally or technically you wouldn't be able to work in Karnataka with a Kerala State Nursing Council registration because of the new requirement. You would need to have separate registration for each state, but you can only have one registration at a time. So you probably would need to surrender your Kerala registration and apply for a registration with the Kannada Nursing Council. You do not require your registration at the start of your employment, but before you leave that employment, you would need to have that active registration. That's one of the questions you would always get from NMC. There's a question from George Nina. Is it possible to apply for track jobs from Kerala or is it for nurses in the UK? Yes, you can always apply for track jobs from anywhere in the world. It is an online portal. If you search NHS jobs, then you will be taken to the track jobs website where you can apply for jobs. But when you're applying for jobs, please make sure you fill the application form properly and upload all the relevant documents and put a personal statement. Also detail every information accurately because at the moment NHS is getting lots of applications, so it is important for you to submit the application properly. But when you submit an application, you would need to make sure you submit an application to a full-time vacancy, which will be detailed in the job description whether it's a full-time vacancy. Normally full-time vacancies are for 37.5 hours, and also it will be mentioned whether it is a permanent vacancy. We often see on the track job there will be part-time jobs, there will be secondment jobs, there will be temporary roles, fixed time roles, but you should always apply for a permanent job. So there is a question, do they still ask for experience if we get the NMC registration or NMC PIN number? It is up to the employer. So some employers, it is up to the employer. So normally in every hospital, the department heads or department managers are making the decision of what sort of qualifications, what sort of experience they would expect from the applicants. So, but even without experience, if you have a PIN number, you will still be able to get jobs. I wouldn't say not necessarily you will get it in NHS, but you will always get job either in a private hospital or in a nursing home. So I'm just looking to some of the other comments. So there was a question from Maju Matthew. So Maju was saying Maju's wife is working as a carer, senior carer. She has a diploma in nursing with experience in dialysis. Whether she would get a chance? Yes, if she can get the NMC registration, there will be vacancies for dialysis nurses, and I believe there will be vacancies. So there's a question from ABCD channel. Will the employer assist in doing CBT and OSCE by paying the fee during the SIFT program? It is up to the employer to make that choice. There are some employers, we work with some employers who are actually paying for the candidates CBT and OSCE examination. So it depends on the employer. It's probably worth to check with your employer to see if they can afford to or if they can support you on your NMC registration process. We have seen some employers are willing to support candidates on registering with NMC, but which will be recouped as a loan from salary. Or some employers might say that, yes, we will bear the cost of your training and everything, but they would expect you to be with that employer for at least a couple of years. So please check with your employer. So wow, I think I'm getting quite a lot of questions. I think one of the best options what I would do, we do have a Telegram group that is where we get a lot of questions, and which has something around 5,000 plus members. So I'll send the link to join our Telegram group, where you can ask most of these questions, and somebody else, if I'm not there, somebody else would respond to those questions. Or because, as I said, it's a very active group with a large number of candidates. So if someone from my team can share the Telegram group link on that chat, then it would allow people to join in that group. I'm just going through some of the other questions. So when you there's a question when you're applying for a track job, there's a question whether you have a UK registration. So when you whether you have a UK registration to work as a nurse in the UK. So if you are a pre-registered nurse, you would need to say you don't have a UK registration. But on the personal statement part, you can put a statement saying that you are a overseas qualified nurse, you have completed your CBT, and you're just awaiting to do your OSCE exam to gain your NMC registration. So if you detail your background on the personal statement, then that will be considered on the interview assessment point. There's a question for, do you have dental assistant vacancies from outside UK? Tingle, I'm not really aware of this. I haven't come across with any of these vacancies recently, so I'm not really aware of this. There's a question from Alsmin. How can someone pass OSCE and get NMC registration without a COS? You do not require a COS to get NMC registration. The NMC registration and COS is completely different. COS is a document which is used for your employment or your visa application, which is a document confirming your employment with your proposed employer. But NMC registration is a regulator. NMC is a regulator where the registration is as a part of the NMC process, where you would need to provide supporting documents to prove your NMC registration application, where COS is not a requirement. So there've been a lot of questions about people who is already on a care visa or on a dependent visa in the UK, and they wanted to progress to a registered nurse role. So if you are a care worker or senior care worker currently employed in the UK on a full-time role, at least 20 hours plus in a weekly contract, and if you have worked for an employer for the last 1 year, if the employer is a nursing home or a care home, you can ask your employer if whether they could support you through the SIF pathway. So if they're willing to support you through the SIF pathway, then all you have to do is you have to start your NMC registration, submit all your documents, then pass your CBT examination, then do your part 2 of your NMC registration, then sit for your OSCE examination. Once you've done that, then you can submit your reference form to your employer, which they can submit directly to the NMC. Then NMC would consider that and make a decision based on it. But again, there are certain requirements in filling a SIF path form. Then the form has to be signed by 2 people from the employment. One has to be the registered manager or has to be registered with the NMC. The second one has to be on a senior role. So you need to have 2 positions who are eligible to complete this form for you or for you. So you need to make sure that once you've done that form, then you can submit that to NMC. Then NMC would consider, and you will get NMC PIN number based on it. The other option, if you have done IELTS or OET, you're missing 0.5 in any of the modules. See, for example, if you are done CBT, you are missing zero point 0.5 in your writing, or if you're missing zero point 0.5 in IELTS examination, you can actually combine these two scorecards. So you can use your IELTS scorecard, which is with the zero point 0.5 missing. Then you can actually add on your SIP form to justify your zero point 0.5 in that particular module. So you can do a combination of your IELTS score and also a SIP pathway. You don't have to completely rely on the SIP pathway. There is a question from Lena Benny. Is there any private healthcare group known as Hospital Corporation of America? Hearing that name, it looks like scam to me. There are lots of scams. So as I said, if you get an offer letter just via email without having any conversations, there will be a chance it will be a scam. But if you have any concerns on that, probably the best thing is if you can email your documents, your offer letter to myself on febin@envertiz.com, then I'm happy to support you. I'm happy to verify that offer letter for you. So there's a question from Saumya. Saumya saying Saumya is working in a maternity department, but she is not a midwife. I have done CBT in adult, so I can attend in any OBG interviews. So this is same as to pediatric vacancies, and in some other hospitals or most of the hospitals, the pediatric or the maternity department is managed by midwives. But we do have seen these departments are now taking adult qualified nurses, adult qualified nurses with OBG experience or gynec experience. So they will be supporting the patients on pre and prop cases. So you can definitely get a job in the gynec department. The vacancies are limited. In my understanding, the ratio is probably I think 1:3 or 1:5 for one adult nurse for 5 midwives. So that's the kind of ratio. And again, I think that depends in each hospital. But there are vacancies. We have also placed a lot of nurses who are with gynec experience, registered on the adult register, and currently